Oh yes, this is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. And today's show, sponsored by Cheshire Impact, on a mission to help people maximize their use of Pardot and Salesforce. CheshireImpact.com. Bam. I'm excited for this one. The guest today, I can't wait to introduce you to her. She is not only a marketing executive, but a fellow adventurer and sci-fi fan. So many things to talk about. Maybe we'll talk about marketing for a few minutes. So much to get to. Big into Agile, an Agile business leader. And she's been working across different functional areas, right? We all got to get out of our silos. She's been in marketing, sales, product development, big evangelist of discovery-based learning, CMO at Alkami Technology. Holly Tsourides, welcome to the show.
Oh, Casey, thank you so much for having me here. I can't think of a better way to start my day.
Yeah, start the day, start the week. You got coffee, you get your Patriots mug, which, immediately I saw that and was like, let's do this.
Yeah, and it's the throwback guy too.
Right.
I love this guy.
Right, like Throwback Thursday logo.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, this is our marketing leadership series. I'm so happy to have you on here. I know you're busy. So what I want to do is pass you this thing real quick. It's kind of heavy for me, but I'm pretty sure you got it. Ugh. Okay, here we go. Thor's hammer. You got it?
I get it. I get it.
Oh, look at that. One-handed, like a tennis racket. Look at that. So take Thor's hammer and smash for me some kind of marketing myth, bogus strategy, misconception. Just set the record straight once and for all.
Yeah. So this is something that I'm really passionate about, actually. I have spent my career in B2B marketing and in B2B products, and I often hear it said that there's no room for emotion in B2B marketing, and that's where I want to stand up right away and correct people. Well, at least I should say, give them my opinion on this. That I would argue all day long that emotion and compelling storytelling is actually so much more important in B2B marketing than it is in consumer marketing. And the reason for that is, when you and I make a purchase in our everyday life, right? Like we don't have to answer to anyone, right? We can make a stupid purchase, and what's the harm of that? Like, oh, okay, maybe it sits on the shelf, it gets thrown out or whatever.
Right.
But I mean, you make a bad call, when the stakes are higher in a B2B buying situation, whether it be, with what type of, enterprise software to purchase, what type of contracts to sign. Like, there's a lot of eyeballs on that, and the stakes are higher.
Yeah.
So I would say, okay, the emotions that you're tapping into may be different, whereas the consumer, play, then okay, maybe you're tapping into my, spontaneity, my, need to feel free and independent, but on the B2B side, I mean, there's still very much like, you need to make them feel safe, you need to make them feel smart, right? In our world today, you want them to feel part of a supportive and a smart community, of other customers and clients. So again, I would argue that, you look at the best B2B companies out there and kind of take a step back and look at their messaging, look at their advertising, look at their campaigns, and they're very emotional. So I get very passionate about correcting people about that, and they'll say, oh, well, with B2B, you must just be all like features and functions. And I'm like, yeah, if you suck at it, I suppose, right? If you really want nobody to remember, what makes, you different and what makes you the best solution for their problem, sure, go that way all day long.
Oh man, this is so huge. When you're first talking about this, I was thinking like the lovey-dovey emotions, but you brought up the fear factor, which is, man, if you make a bad business buying decision, not only have you made it and you get the heat, but it's probably a year-long contract. So there's 11 more months that you can get. Oh, what is this in the budget? Oh, that thing. Thanks, Casey. Thanks for making that call. We're going to have to live with it for the next year, or more. Thanks. So there is that fear and that sense of what if I mess up, and there's so much more visibility. So all kind of emotions at play here. Why do people think that you shouldn't? Why are they trying to make it like devoid of all these feelings?
Well, I think, if you look at still kind of tapping into, you see these different, pyramids, if you will, of these value systems, you are, again, it's got to suit your product and your solution. But if you're playing at a commodity level, okay, then it's going to be more of a straight old ROI, this is the minimum specs that I need, and now it's going to become a cost issue. So there is that world, but still, I mean,
Hmm.
you can still do business innovation around how you help them with other needs and other emotions. But as you start, kind of climbing that value chain, then yeah, the stakes get higher in terms of, what people expect from you, and that you are going to make them smarter. You're going to help their career. There's a whole, host of marketers that have, added to their value by becoming either, Salesforce certified at different levels,
Hmm.
whatever ABM platform that they want to use, whatever, So as a professional, right, building my career too, I want to keep on, being associated and upping my skills with these things, and don't think that Salesforce doesn't use that, right, as part of its whole value proposition.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's all, and I want to get into the skills in a second too, because you're right. There's so much you need to do and stay up with things. Um, to go back to the emotions for just a second, it's almost like the emotions, without emotions, it's safer. Like you can understand it, it's more logical, but then really there's a sort of illogical, irrational, like the book, irrational buying that happens,
Yeah.
and it's not as easy to predict, or it doesn't fit a funnel all the time.
Yeah, I mean, and I would argue you can almost look at it like this, if we, kind of more of economic theory, that, there is a minimum, there's value created with your solution, and there's value
Yeah.
created with your competitor's solution. So let's pretend like they're all right, let's just level set them. And that where you're going to get that surplus margin, I could make a strong argument that it comes from that emotion,
Mm,
that it
yeah.
comes from that brand and what is associated with, buying into that. There's a saying somewhere, that goes around the way of, you want to choose a business based on the customers that they have, right? Because that's how you're going to be identified as well. Now, again, I'm talking at kind of the higher end of the playground, if you will, where things like
Sure.
brand and, premium margins, do come into play.
I can see that happening though, because I've certainly joined a bunch of sales calls where two competing products were, they weren't on this line at the same time, but they might as well have been, because they were all just debating features. And I feel like I just saw a recent LinkedIn post where someone was like, "What's the difference between Marketo and Pardot?" And you see a lot of features and functions, but like that's not really, in the end, their features and functions are very close and similar. And it's like you're not going to win your battle. Yeah, you may be, but like that's a really hard battle. Like, oh, we have this, and someone else is like, well, we have this, and it's like nitty gritty. There's a feeling. How do I feel? Does this user group feel good? Does this, to your point, the user community, Pardot users, Marketo users, like how do they act? All those other feelings that
Right.
come into
Yeah.
play.
Yeah. So I think as a marketer, in that situation, one of the smartest things you could probably do is, right, because you know, people are pretty good at calling BS too.
Yeah,
Is, you call it and you say, hey, we're, it's a great product. We're a great product. Maybe there's these, couple of differences in how we look at the world and how that infiltrates, our product strategy. But here's where, we really excel, right? We really excel because of, X, Y, and Z, in some combination of how we view and invest in our community, right? How we respond, faster than the other guys, when you need us the most. It's that kind of stuff, and that's that, emotion that we were talking about of making that B2B buyer feel like, that little safety,
yeah.
comfort blanket that, okay, yeah, unexpected stuff happens in the world. I don't know exactly what roadmaps are going to look like 2 years from now, but I feel confident making this bet on you because of all this other intangible stuff.
Reminds me of like those weighted blankets you can get where they're just
Yeah,
like a big bear hug, saying like, and your competition has like a tarp. You're like,
there
okay,
you go.
keeping the rain off, but I don't really feel that secure. Someone else is like, here's this heavy, tarp, this heavy weighted blanket. And you're like, oh, I actually feel more secure. Are you able, is this like Is it voodoo? How do you get this into your marketing strategy? Like what part does it play?
Yeah, you have to go all the way back to, now this gets into kind of core positioning of your company. And it's certainly, and this goes back to just like good positioning, right? Good positioning, good messaging, and that emotion is a big pillar of that. But the whole organization has to move. Like, I mean, think of it as you and I move. If we're going to throw a ball, right? We don't just, right, with our wrist.
Right.
It's
Right.
got to
It's not
be it's got to be the
wind up
full.
and yeah.
Exactly, the full motion, unless it's my golf swing, and then it might just be like a one ugly hack at it.
Right.
But
I
not
would miss.
effective
Well, like,
either.
whoa, looks good, but I didn't hit the ball.
Right, so it's a time-consuming, methodical journey of how you kind of dust off the whole positioning and messaging of the company, so that every part of what you do and everyone who speaks on your behalf is always running from that same script. Or otherwise, I mean, in our noisy, crowded world, first of all, it's just not going to come across. Like you and I having this one conversation, for instance, in me making the best case I could say for my solution, in painting you a beautiful tale of, right, all the emotion, all the story, you're the hero, we're helping you, all of that. If I'm the only one doing it, right, it's going to get lost. So like I said, first rule is that you have to make it crystal clear for everybody in your organization to be able to tell that same story. So companies will do things like messaging platforms, messaging architecture, and training people up on that. And then you have to make sure that that is cascaded across everything that you do, right? So whether it's
Right.
obviously all your corporate comms, but then all the way down into your product marketing as well, your services, right, and how you're talking about your services. Because again, if you're keying in on a single emotion, everything should go to support that according to everything that the customer is going to feel along the way.
Got it. So whatever of that global message is, it could be, to your point, a feeling you're trying to convey. There's safety here, there's solution here, there's success here. Some you need that to cascade whatever that message is
Right.
down to everyone. That whatever mission you're on or whatever story the company has, everyone's got to know it and play a part and be able to even just share their piece of it.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. Otherwise it doesn't work. Otherwise, then it is just, window dressing and a convenient message of the moment.
Right. Like a big placard on an office wall saying like 14 core values and nobody can remember all of them, you know?
Right,
Like,
right.
I think trustworthy's on there. You're like, I don't
Yeah,
remember all of them. It's like, it's
right.
integrated.
Integrity, right? You can always go with integrity. That's
Right.
always a good one.
Is integrity there? No, but that's a great one. Thanks for bringing it up, you know?
Right.
Hey, you mentioned as a part of this too, you mentioned earlier storytelling. I wonder, obviously story is a part of this, the story we tell. How do you craft a story? How do you bring in just storytelling, that concept into marketing?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I won't claim to be the most creative person out there. What I like to do is, kind of find a framework, find a best practice, and adapt that. So for the last two marketing organizations that I have helped build as a CMO, one of the things that we did is bring in the story brand. It's a
Oh
very
yeah.
well-known book.
Oh yeah.
I love, I forget the author's name, but he does a great job of even giving you some materials that you can use. Again, and you always adapt them, right, to what's right for your solution, your business. But
Yeah.
that's a framework that I have used repeatedly, and I think it's terrific. And one of the reasons is that it really helps organizations understand too that, kind of 101 storytelling is, to involve the listener. And the best way to involve the listener is you make them the hero. And I
Got
love
it.
to start out, presentations as we start to talk about rebuilding people's frame of reference around storytelling, and the role of the company slash solution and the role of the customer is I'll put up that example and say, okay, Yoda, or Luke Skywalker, right? Who are we?
Right.
And invariably, you get 80, 90% of that audience, ooh, 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 yeah, we're Luke Skywalker. We're Luke Skywalker. We battle evil,
Right.
right? In the answers of obviously the other way around, that it is your customer that's the hero, because they're the ones that have, a problem to solve. They're the ones that are going to have to go on this journey that you're going to have to understand. So we're Yoda, we're the advisor, we're the trusted advisor, and that's our job as marketers, right? We got to understand, how did you get into this predicament, and what
Hmm.
are the steps that you've got to take to get out of it, and how can we help you with that, and what is that happy place, that pot of gold at the end of that rainbow, in your eyes, that you're getting to. So I have kind of defaulted to, adapting and playing around with that. So I think that's an easy way for people to bring storytelling into their organizations. At Alkami, we actually shared that as well with our sales leadership team, because they're very active and hands-on in terms of helping to craft the message, which is a great practice, to have that voice of the customer, of what's really happening of the moment, and bringing that in. And and again, this goes with so many disciplines as you bring them into the organization, but we weren't speaking the same language.
Hmm.
And they wanted to keep raising their hand and saying, oh, but this is what we do that's super cool. Like, yes, it is super cool, but we just got to flip the way that we talk about that, and how it's going to make what the hero or heroine is trying to do that would be super cool. So it's just a lot of times too, that you can take something like that, and just by building that common vocabulary and that common set of logic and reasoning, like, and then things can really take off from there too.
I love that point about making them the hero. It's like, what an interesting question to ask. Are we Luke Skywalker? Are we Yoda? And it's like a trick. It's a trick question. The customer is Luke Skywalker or Leia
Yeah,
or whoever.
yeah,
Like we're we're the Yodas, and
yeah,
Yoda's cool. Like no, Baby
absolutely.
Yoda's even cooler. But but we're the customer is the Mandalorian. The customer is the hero on this journey. And the different questions you asked were interesting too. How did you get here? And then let's talk through the steps that we can take to get you out of here. But it's your journey. You're taking it. We're honored to be a part of it, but it's not our journey. And I'm glad you talked to sales about that, because I could easily see marketing could say this message all day long, but when it gets to sales and sales is like, I'm the hero, I'm the sales guy or gal, I'm the hero, we're going to save you. It's like, no, 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 don't. That's not the message. We need to carry the message all the way through that the customer is the hero.
Yeah, I mean, and just to relate it to personal lives, like I like to think it would be as absurd as, showing up on a date, and, first date, I'd be like, oh, Casey, wow, I find you so fascinating. Now let me tell you everything about me, right?
Does that work?
I I
I
don't
don't
know.
I
I
don't
can't
imagine it
imagine it
would.
would.
Yeah.
I can't unless you're sitting across somebody like Elon Musk, or somebody that you're like, yes, I just want to hear all about you because you are one of a kind,
Right.
right? But no, I jest. But I mean, but it'd be tantamount to doing
Yeah.
that. So in
Yeah.
our marketing world, yeah, we don't want to show up on that first date and try to tell them how important, how customer centered we are. Now let us tell you all about us.
Yeah, like on your profile online, on your website, it said how customer focused you were, but then you get on a call, and yeah, I can see that. I feel like I've seen that on like sitcoms and stuff too, where it's like, oh, that's nice, cool, back to me now. Oh, that's nice,
Hmm.
back to me, back to me, back to me, and you're like, this feels weird. Is this like the back to you show? Like, ugh.
Right,
Hey, I gotta go. My family is sick. My
right,
aunt's cousin is sick. I gotta go.
right.
But yeah, it can't be self-centered and selfish. It has to be like a serving act, to do the sales and the marketing side.
So I would challenge all of us. I mean, when you think about this concept, is just kind of pause, take a quiet moment, and think about the last big purchase that you made in a B2B environment. And I mean, you can feel the difference in terms of how you respond to the presenter, of how engaged you are, your immediate, kind of limbic system reaction to, do I care about this or do I not?
Mm-hmm.
And when a company nails that, like, oh, it feels so good, because like,
Doesn't it?
yeah, you're like, you get me, you really are just speaking to the things that I'm telling you I care about, not just all the things that you want to tell me. about, and that's huge. Like I love the way that, and trust me, I'm not an expert by any means, just scratching the surface, but of understanding the way that brain science
Hmm.
works into, our job as marketers, and that understanding of, yeah, you've got about like 4 nanoseconds, to get through, to that. I think it's the limbic system. You have to first go maybe through the hypothalamus. I forget exactly, but basically that fight or flight,
Yeah.
it happens super quickly. And as a marketer, like I said, you have to open up strong. I have to make that connection with you, like I said, in just a few seconds.
Hmm.
Otherwise, the brain, because it just protects itself from going on overload from all the stimuli around us, it's making that decision. Like, do I let you in, or do I kind of like stick you to the back burner for background processing?
Yeah.
And right, we want to get in, right? We want to get in
Right.
right away. We want you invested in this, and so you have to do that out of the gate, because subconsciously we're making those judgments, and with otherwise then we're just making it more difficult for ourselves. So anytime you open up and you've got the hey, company ABC, here's all the fun facts about us. We were founded in this year, and
Oh no, you lost me
started
already.
with radio transmitters, and here we
Flight,
are now.
flight.
Like, yes, exactly. Like, I start dreaming about what's happening on my phone. I'm not even trying to check out, but it happens.
I've certainly been on calls like that, and it to make matters worse, after they start talking, they're like, "Cool, let's go into a demo," and you're just like, good chance for me to check my email and not have to interact
Yeah,
and answer your questions. But then you're like, I'm wasting my time right now. But the better ones are the ones trying to find out the challenges, or maybe already have an idea of what your challenges are, but it's really all about you. It's
yeah.
such a why don't more people do this? I don't know. Like, I don't know why people don't do
Well,
this.
Casey, and I think, and this is something that's really your world, I know. I think that, technology is awesome. First, let me
Hmm.
just go on record and say that. I mean, it enables all types of, new businesses. It levels the playing field in a lot of ways. The barriers to entry have come down. So lots of great things to be said about it. But I also think, though, it you know enables, people, though, to kind of lose, the forest,
Hmm.
for the trees, if you will, and that, we get distracted with all these shiny new tech tools, and we forget, like, everything you and I are just talking about right now, like, none of this is new.
Right.
This is one of those classic axioms, but yet, we forget to put those into practice.
Right.
And I just see more and more people, more marketers especially, just get distracted by that at you don't have to run to your campaign platform, this platform, whatever, to see sometimes the reason for poor results. Sometimes you have to take a step back and say, are do we have the right story? Do we
Hmm.
understand our customer? I mean, we can be executing on a campaign, from the tech sense, perfectly. uh, but again, if you're not making that emotional connection and having that compelling story that your customer can identify and see themselves in, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so easy, like immediately from loading one of those tools, to look at people as numbers now. Now
Yeah,
they're a number in a column. But if you
right.
really do the math, you're like, even one person clicking, that's like a human with hopes and dreams and goals and fears and emotions that have taken an action. And so it's very easy to think about the sort of at scale thing and forget that, like, it's not a game. It's not like we're on Nintendo or Xbox now. It's like it's actually humans doing this. So yeah, it's very easy to lose that. And then also there's like the silver bullet mentality of, I really don't know what the strategy should be here, but these tech vendors are saying that this will just cure all my pain, or at least that's what I think they're saying. So I'm just gonna drop it in there, and then people just leave it on the shelf. Whether
Yeah,
it could work, but you're leaving it. You're not doing it. You're just kind
yeah.
of hoping it'll solve all of your problems for you.
And I think coupled with that, or I should say maybe even contributing to it, is, yeah, it's very fashionable, to talk about, data analytics and being data driven. And so first of all, like I said, and that's something we'll talk about, I know later, is absolute, that's a must, and I'd be a very loud voice on that. But also though, I think it's people though finding their level of sophistication, if you will, with that, meaning that, I think we use data, to confirm. I think
Mm,
we use data to, maybe tease out some of the more important questions we should be asking. And so that's why in my organization, I have very deliberate wording around this, that, we don't make data-based decisions. We make data-informed decisions. And again, not to be overly pedantic about the word choice, but it's not like we're on autopilot and okay, data tells us this, so go that way. No,
right.
it's, you need to look at the data points, but you need to put it into context. And then, right, let's put our, AI and the robots and
Sure.
Skynet isn't running the world yet, right? So let's go ahead and put our human, element into this, and then take a step back and understand, why the results are, stronger or weaker than we expected them to be. So again, like I would lump, kind of that, booby trap of, you know, technology and, this the kind of data gone wild belief, if you will, together. And like I said, very important, get your discipline around them, put them in their place, if you will, in your strategy, but they shouldn't drive your strategy, and
Mm.
they should not obscure your view of what to do next.
Yeah, like it's yeah, I'm glad, even though maybe it's a difference of a word, it is actually important because it's the difference between letting it lead you versus you leading the way based on emotions and the people and the customers you've talked to, and letting the data inform your decision, as opposed to being like you're not worshiping the data and just doing whatever it says. You're in charge, you're setting the strategy, and then the data is supporting you, or helping you discover. I like you discover things, to confirm things, but
Yeah.
it's not driving the whole process.
Yeah, Casey, I kind of think of it this way too, is, pretend like data is one voice in the room.
Oh, I
You
like
know,
that. Yeah.
people make the comment, and again, it's well intentioned, but hey, the numbers speak for themselves, the data speaks for itself. Sure, right? But it's one voice, what should be amongst many, many diverse, voices in that room, if you will. And that's how I look at it. Like I said, again, always demand that it's there, right? Always demand that it has, a
Right.
prominent seat at the table, but it is not at the head of the table, if you will, and it's not, making all the decisions for the organization.
Yeah, it's almost like I can picture a cartoon of this, because I know, with Amazon and other companies, they have the customer have a seat at the table. But now
Yeah,
we can have data have a seat at the table. Hey, there's plenty of seats. You're not in charge of the meeting, but like definitely be a part of this one, you know?
yeah. So Casey, you and I, we've got a couple of new little cartoons and graphics to ink, it
We
sounds
do.
like, coming out of this.
We do. Maybe we need a comic book, like a marketing comic book or something. Yeah.
There you go.
Spin that up. You had mentioned um, the data driven. Like, how important is the outcome? Because I think we lose sight of that.
Yeah. So I'll have to ask you to clarify that a little bit
Sure.
more.
The outcome in marketing. I think whether this ties into alignment with sales or just doing your own marketing work, sometimes we're about the data, sometimes we're about activity. We're just about like, let's be busy like bees, and then don't worry
Yeah.
about everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. So, and you had covered this a bit in my introduction, and I've been fortunate to work in different departments. And one of the things, and I know that this is an audience for marketers, so I'll keep it very focused on this. But honestly, Casey, I think that's a challenge for all of us, and myself included, is to always do that self-check. Am I working on the most important things? Is my, the way I've spent my time this week, is it reflected in that? But now I'll come back to marketing. And I think that marketers, we have a special challenge, if you will, because now let's just contrast it with sales and with product. And
Yeah.
then I'll get into why this is especially important, I think, for marketers to be
Okay.
super disciplined about being outcome obsessed. is that, sales and product, they both have these like tangible, outputs, if you will, right? Sales, never has to prove their ROI, right? Because either they win, they lose, we
Yeah.
have the client, we don't, right? I mean, the revenue is a direct tie, if you will, even though there's lots of stuff that goes into that, but it's a direct tie to, them proving their value, their return
Right.
on that investment. Product is the same way. That again, okay, we spent X million dollars on R&D on products, and here's what we got for it, right? We've got these, 17 products, these new things we've launched, and again, you can tie directly to that. So the special fun thing for us marketers is that there is not a concrete output, if you will, that
Hmm.
most of us in our businesses, can tie to, that really is, forefront in the company strategy, and in, the objectives, and how we make money, if you will,
Yeah.
right? So sales, very quantifiable.
Right.
Products, how many did we release? Did we release
Yeah.
them? How many people are buying them? So you've got all that. So as marketers, right, we kind of, sit in the background a little bit. The stuff that we do on the forefront, unfortunately, is not, unless you're a big brand that can measure, right, the consumer, awareness and sentiment. Most of us aren't going to fall into that category. So we're never going to be able to really quantify the front end
Hmm.
of some of the positioning work we do, and that brand awareness. So we're stuck now of having, okay, guys, how do we prove our value? And so that's why I think it's especially important for marketers to be super obsessed with, okay, what is that 2 levels up, if you will, company objective, that's important for the whole company to win. And then how do we tie back everything we're doing to that? And so again, that's why I think it's really important for marketers to get that straight, because otherwise, yeah, people will come around and, hey, Holly, how's it going? How's the marketing team? Oh, great, we're super busy. And
Right.
my teams will always, laugh and joke around, because that's what I coach them on, is like, guys, we're not super busy, we're super focused, right? And that's what the company needs from us. They don't need us to be busy running around with, fighting fires, and they need us to be super focused and disciplined about saying no to the things that aren't creating the value that the corporation needs, and saying yes, to the activities that are directly tying to that. And that's why I think, like, again, with marketers, because we don't have that classic, output, this is how we're doing, you have to be very, very intentional about it. But it's hard, because again, unless you're coming into an organization that has a well established marketing practice, you know it's you have to have a methodical plan for how you enable your organization to do that, and it doesn't happen overnight.
Boom.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I can imagine the change in perception of the marketing team when everyone in the team is saying, we're focused, we're focused. They're not complaining about being busy like it's a badge of honor or a badge of courage. Well, cool. Sales is usually busy, whether they are or they aren't. It's all about the outcome. So it doesn't even, great. I
Right.
hope you are busy. I hope that means you get more sales, but either way, you got to produce something. But no, we're super focused.
Yeah.
And also the idea of not just your immediate metric you're looking at, but what are the people 1, 2, 3, however many levels up from you looking at the company objectives? Where's the company trying to go? And then tying into that so that you're not, it's not some vanity metric that only marketing understands or somebody else on a podcast understands. It's like, no, that's relevant to the CEO, to the CFO, to everyone. That's a helpful metric to be working toward. That's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. But like I said, it doesn't happen overnight. And again,
Mm-hmm.
everyone will have their different, practices of how you build this. But the way I look at it, there's really kind of, three things that have to exist. The first is that you have to have, again, now we'll revisit data, and data architecture and infrastructure, from a very positive enabling sense, that you have to have your data organized in a way, where there's integrity in it, You can manipulate it, meaning, you can run all of your own, analyzations on it, and that you're capturing the right inputs. So again, I would say that marketing organizations that don't have a full-time marketing analytics person, that you're, again, that's probably going to be a softer area for you, and it has to be strong to be able to do this.
Right.
And then the second is, and this goes all the way now back to how you budget and how you do your resource planning, is I'm a big fan of, project accounting, which is less about line items like, okay, well, hey, we're going to spend, 10% more on events and trade shows. We're going to spend, 5% less on consultants. Like, that doesn't tell me anything useful, in my opinion. What
Interesting.
what is much more useful for me, and I think for, any of then your colleagues at the C level, is to map it to what are those key initiatives that are supporting those corporate objectives. So for instance, if, Casey, you and I want to penetrate a new market, that's an initiative, right? So
Right.
whether it's a new market, a new geography, and then I want to see how much money is going into that initiative. I don't care if it's coming from consultants. I don't care if it's coming from trade shows. It's how much money am I spending to get that outcome that we want from that investment. And, again, the whole organization doesn't have to practice this. And I haven't been in organizations that have, but what I've done is I've taken the marketing budget, and we will, at the end of the month when we get our reports, is we will allocate everything to those key initiatives, and then we'll measure how we're doing against those. So
Wow.
again, if I see that I'm not getting the results in a certain area at the top level, I can go back to our budget and say, oh, well, guys, guess what, we're spending 50% of what we thought we were going to year to date. Not a surprise, right,
Right.
that we're not having the headway that we wanted to there. And then it's a great gut check, I think, as well. People say it different ways, but, you can say that strategy is how you spend your money and resources. So again, if I take a look at our budget in totality now, and I'm looking at the proportion of where money is going by project, by initiative, I can very quickly see mismatches. I can see like, okay, wow, right, on the priority list and what's going to have the impact on the company, we're spending 40% of our entire budget on this thing that maybe is only 5% of, the overall corporate objectives. And you can really start to see that and hold yourself accountable to, okay, we can't talk about the fact that we're building this organization of the future when you look again at our budget and resources, and we're not giving that organization of the future any investment time right
Yeah.
now. So that's the second big thing, that has to exist. And then the third is, and this is, I would say, the most difficult, because as a marketer, you have the least amount of control over this, and it's much more now about change management and culture and collaboration with other groups. But you have to have kind of these second level cross-functional aligned goals. And what I mean by that is it's very easy for everyone to have, the same top level goals, because it gets set right by the CEO, by the CFO, by the C-suite, of here's the revenue, here's the gross margin, et cetera, et cetera. However, it's the now, as they say, the devil in the details of how are we going to get there. And a good example of this is, for me to, as a marketer, put up an objective, that says, we are going to have, successful product launches of, these two major releases. Okay, well, again, I can't quantify that in that format, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have to have very clear goals, with the product team of, well, what does that mean? What are your adoption goals? What are your sales goals? What are your whatever that metric is going to be? And then I have to align my goals to that. But what happens most often is that we're not going to that second level, and we're not, if we are, having that cross-functional alignment. So it says that, okay, of these three major product launches, here's what our definition of success is on each of them, because now, maybe it's not the same, Maybe they know that one release is going to be more important than another. But as the marketer, again, how do I right size now my budgets, my time and attention, to each of those different three releases? I have to know what your goal is of success so I can plan my resources accordingly.
Right.
And in the same, you can work the same scenario across with sales of, okay, well, again, we all know the top line number, but what are your assumptions below that? How much are going to come from this type of customer? How much are going to come from, renewals? How much are going to come from this? So again, I know how to plan. Otherwise, I am left, kind of in the dark and unable to come up with these, really crystal clear metrics that allow me to drive the right behavior. So that's the toughest one. But I think if you nail all three of those, and you'll always be perfecting them and at different, stages of maturation there and proficiency. But in my opinion, those are the three ingredients that you really need to work on if you're going to be really driving towards, this, what I call this outcome obsessed marketing, where everything, or as much as you can of what you're doing, what your team is doing, is driving towards the most important things for the company.
I've been in board meetings where they didn't align to anything, and it's a mess. But I've been in some where they align to at least the company's goals, and that's better. But then I've experienced what you were talking about, where everyone's got their goals that help out with a company goal, but they're kind of still siloed. They don't really take everyone else into consideration, and
Yeah,
then it always feels like something's off, like it's gears that are meshing every 2-3 rotations, but not completely. And what it's missing is that second, like shifting gear, like get that second level of goals interchanged, and just being able to have those conversations amongst the different departments. I can see being so much benefit to that, because now you know how they're approaching it. You can adjust how you're approaching it as well. And yeah, that's really powerful. I have not heard that, just like I also haven't heard the project accounting. And like how many interviews I've done, I have yet to hear someone talk about that, but I could immediately see the benefit when you're describing how your spend, like where your spend and your resources, almost like Agile, where your resources are
yeah,
going, but your spend as well. Where is your spend going? And I could see, we talk about, marketing being under the gun, when times get tight, and they're looking at, are we a cost center? And well, a budget that just says, look, we printed T-shirts, and we sent out gifts, and we did
right.
a podcast, all these things as line items. You haven't fixed the problem. That budget makes you still look like you're busy and not focused. But when your budget is focused on the outcomes, like, wow, that's cool. Yep, we've invested 20K, 300K, whatever it is, and this, either product launch, or in this, we want to get recurring customers, we want to increase that. We're doing that with sales to help increase that. Wow, like just a little bit of a subtle shift. The numbers are still the same, but you're just presenting them differently, and you're focused differently.
Yeah. So Casey, I mean, I'm super shocked that none of your speakers want to come on here, your guests, and talk about accounting as the sexiest thing out there, right?
I
It's not usually a
know, right?
marketer's go-to topic, but yeah, but right, it's one of those foundation, those fundamental things.
Yeah,
The other thing now, let's remember our own medicine here in terms
sure.
of speaking to what powers the individual to make a decision, what drives into that emotion as well. The other thing that I love about outcome orientation and driving your team to think like that is the role it plays now for the individual. That if you know exactly, and you can visualize it in your mind, and you understand the numbers of where we need to get to, the path is always going to change. Right? I mean, if anything, I mean, COVID has taught us that, right? It's been like a
Yeah.
huge wake up call to anyone that didn't want to have to shift and with the times. But everything is always changing, right? We're
Hmm.
always getting new information. And the way as an individual in growing your career, I would think is that you can help the company respond quickly to these types of changes. And just an example that I'll give you is and this was something that happened, a few jobs ago, but we were, we had a set budget for launching Pardot. I think it was Pardot at the time.
Okay.
We had a small but mighty marketing team, right? I think lots of folks can probably relate to that. And for the company, we had a very strategic reason why we had to get Pardot up and running and to start to get these drip campaigns out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this employee, this team member, and she is terrific. But she was really internalizing, like, oh, okay, we have a budget. I can't exceed that budget. We've already used those consulting hours.
Mm.
And when I spoke with her, it didn't take long to see that we were going to be delayed, because she was trying to do everything herself. And she thought that that was the win, that the win was staying within budget and, not having to, raise her hand and say that we needed more. And I sat down with her and explained, hey, if we're delayed on this, and what you're looking at right now, you're telling me like maybe, 30 days delayed on this, then this is what it does, the ripple effect through the rest of the organization, right? Then we're going to be 30 delays on starting this, which is
Mm.
going to put us 60 delays on that, which is going to put us 90, 120 days out from that business
Jeez.
outcome that we need. The year will have closed. We won't have got that proof point. And, she's like, okay, wow. All right, I understand now. I said, so no, what the company needs is for you to keep your eye on that ultimate outcome and don't see the obstacles. Don't, your job is to raise your hand and say, hey, I've got a new piece of data. I've got a new input. I've got a new view of the world that is telling me that that outcome is at risk. And I'm going to tell you why it's at risk, and I'm going to tell you what needs to be done to get it back on track. And in this case, it was as simple as just upping our engagement hours with this consulting firm so that
Yeah.
she didn't have to labor over figuring it out or getting the templates made, right? Easy stuff. But again, once you get your mind thinking about the outcome, then it drives the right behavior and it makes you so much more valuable.
Mind blowing, right? As because I was like I was her in that story, and I was like, well, yeah. I mean, don't you just want to keep things on budget? But then as you're explaining, this particular project is tied to like four other things, and you being off by a few days here, and look what happens to the whole organization. And it's like you're kind of sharing that CMO level view. Look at everything around you, and sales and ops and this product, and all this grinds to a halt, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I see. It actually makes it, that, extra few $1,000s or whatever it is for, it's like, actually that's pocket change compared to this whole machine stopping. So let's
Yeah.
keep going, wow.
Yes,
Such
and
a,
it's
yeah.
and Casey, I like to think it's one of those things that once people, kind of break through that ceiling, if you will, and it becomes more instinctive to kind of pick your head up and look up and look at the, okay, well, why is this important? Why does this matter?
Mm-hmm.
It starts to become, part of your habit. And again, I think that's one of the, fastest ways for marketers, to really start to, climb the ladder, if you will, is by adopting that type of thinking. And just one last story. I mean, this
Mm-hmm.
literally, I had this conversation this morning before you and I chatted. And again, world changing all around us all the time. And hopefully all of us, that are listening right now are taking a fresh look at our goals and making sure that we are aligned with, where our customers are today and with the world. When you're faced with a goal,
Mm-hmm.
and if you understand, why that goal is important to the company, and why, if we miss that, of what happens, and the negative, fallout from that, then again, it changes your thinking of, okay, today I'm struggling to see how we're going to get there, and I'm going to, because of my, natural human tendencies are to sometimes, think negatively about why I can't, or why this organization can't. Like, no, flip it the complete other way around. Tell me what you need to get this done,
Right.
right? So tell me what you what would need to change for us to be able to get there. So it's, again, I kind of put that more towards that driving the right individual behavior when we're, you know, obsessively looking at the outcome that we need to produce. It's now, how do I make this happen? the reasons why I can't make this happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the proactive versus sort of reactionary excuses or defensive plays and that kind
Right.
of thing. Yeah. Um, Man, this is, I feel like this is like a master class on some really important topics. Where do you see all this going? Where do you see the future? Anything coming around the bend that strategies or technology? What are you excited about?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I mean,
If
you know, I'm,
anything,
I'm
right? Because it's
yeah,
like
like I said,
COVID time. I know.
well, again, right, chaos, crisis, even, you look at, I think that the Chinese word for that is something like it's a combination of danger plus opportunity,
Oh,
and I love that because I think it's very true. And so I'm not going to make any bold predictions here, Casey, just that, I think that again, the silver lining perhaps in what we're all going through from an economic and business sense is that it's a great time. It's a great time to innovate. It's a great time to disrupt yourself. It's a great time to look at new use cases for your customers, for your clients, because I would argue that in every sector out there, that your clients and your customers, they're not behaving the same way that
right,
they did, come, February 1st of this year, that it is changing all around us. And sometimes companies, I think, need kind of a stark wake-up call to take a hard look at maybe some of the assumptions that they hold to be true that are no longer true. And so, like I said, I think it's a great time to take a fresh look at everything that you're doing, of how your customers' lives are doing, of how their problems are changing. And I would challenge us all that if we're still thinking about that customer solution and that customer journey in the same ways as we did, 6 months ago, then we're going to be in trouble. That this is a great time to build stronger DNA in your businesses, of how you stay close to your customer, how you innovate, how you disrupt yourself for the future.
absolutely. There is opportunity in that chaos for sure.
Yeah.
Who are you? Can you take me back in time, like little Holly days? What was it like growing up? Did you always know you're going to be in marketing, and where
Oh
were
God,
you
no.
and
What
all
a
that?
bore that would have been, huh? No, let's see. So yeah, I grew up in Massachusetts. I was and that's where, you and I
Go
get our
Patriots.
our
Yeah.
Patriots connection. Spent a lot of time in Nashua, where you
Yeah.
live too. And yeah, I mean, I was born in South Korea. I was
No kidding.
adopted from South Korea, and I had the most amazing childhood. I was so spoiled with just unconditional love and support from the two best parents I could have hoped for.
Wow.
So I mean, you asked me kind of where I'm from, what I'm all about, and I mean, and it all starts there,
Yeah.
because my parents, like I said, they're just amazing people, very very blue collar, salt of the earth, just great values. And I grew up in this environment where, yeah, I mean, they taught me that I could do whatever I wanted to do. And, but that you had to work, really
Right.
hard to get it. No one's going to, just hand it to you. But then, also just very, knowing that you have that safety net, and not a financial safety net either. It's, because again, my we didn't come from money, but just that emotional, hey, go ahead, risk it,
Yeah.
fall, make mistakes, it's okay, right? That unconditional love and support. I just, like I said, I had the most fortunate upbringing in that sense. And that really set me along my way of not being afraid to take risks, not being afraid to fail. And because I grew up with such a core belief, and yeah, go for it, you can do it.
Right. Yeah. Just hardworking Massachusetts folks. They have the accents, those like pack the cat, those things.
We grew up north of Boston, and so as
Okay.
you
Okay.
know, right, there's a definite distinction between north of Boston and south of Boston. So yes, they still have their Boston accents to some degree, but not as severely as some of my folks from, Saugus and,
Oh, sure.
yeah, where it gets pretty heavy. And yeah, so they, like I said, just terrific upbringing in every sense. Very smart people. We talked about real topics all the time, which I try to do with my kids as well, is, have real conversations. And yeah, just like I said, set me up for, really, I think the rest of my life.
Wow. Wow. Powerful. And then you go to school and it's, what is it, politics time when you get to school? Poli sci?
Yeah, yeah. Again, like you, so you asked, did you think that you wanted to be a marketer your whole life? I could say, God, no. I think the first thing I thought I was going to be is a lobbyist. And
Really?
this goes all the way back to junior high school. And, again, goes back to my folks of talking about very real, things that were happening in the world around us. And so I
Sure.
was always encouraged to have a real point of view about things. And in junior high school, I can remember I used to write political editorials for nobody. Like it wasn't even
Sure.
like we had a school newspaper. And I would write these political editorials. And I don't know, I probably tried to make my friends read them. I doubt that they did, but my dad would read them, my mom would read them. And so yeah, I thought that I wanted to be a lobbyist. That was the first thing. And then toyed with the idea of, I think if you read my high school yearbook, like my future plans were to become a US senator. So I was definitely like thinking in that direction. So that
Wow.
was that was my first, I guess you could say, love. And I explored it quite a bit too. And I kind of held on to that all the way through undergrad and did different internships with like my congressman's office,
Hmm.
different political campaigns, and kind of explored, again, I didn't probably know it at the time what I was doing, but was exploring some of these assumptions I had about, this industry and what it takes to be successful, what type of money you can earn at what different times in your life, and synthesizing all of that to make a decision. And I eventually opted, kind of looking around and said, okay, no, not what I want to do with my life, and I think the two things that kind of stood out for me, one being practical, one being more philosophical, but that especially on the lobbying side, and I guess even on the public service side, is a win isn't always a clear win, right? Like on the
Hmm.
lobbying side, like you could win maybe for one of your clients by killing something else. And it's just this constant trade-off. And again, so this path to how to goodness wasn't necessarily very clear. That's more philosophical. But the second is more practical, and it comes down to money. That
Hmm.
always wanted to be, financially independent. And again, you had to probably slave away on the hill for like 10 years and make all of your, strong committee relationships and build your network before you could really, pull down a decent salary. And I just said, you know what, kind of time value of money, I'm not willing to invest 10 years of my life working at said level when I could go into sales, which is what I did.
Hmm.
And,
Oh, wow.
and invest my time in my returns differently.
Yeah, with sales, like we talked about earlier, you see a very immediate response. If you
Yeah.
do good, you see that return back to you.
Yeah, no, I love it. Like, and that's why, and I would recommend sales as a great place to go for folks starting their career again, because it's very quantifiable. You get immediate feedback. You learn a lot of great skills. And again, I can thank my dad for my getting into sales. I remember him bringing home an article clipping, and he worked as a machinist, for I don't know, 40 years in the same business. And
Wow.
so we didn't speak kind of the same business, language, but he understood what my ambitions were. And he would do these great things of just very thoughtful things, like, and he just clipped this article for me, and it was about, at the time, remember, this is probably like 25 years ago or plus, God. And
I
it
know.
was it was about, back when like six-figure incomes were, something, more unusual. And there was an article, I think, from the Boston Globe about, that, the highest percentage of people with six-figure incomes, it wasn't doctors, it wasn't lawyers in terms of, percentages. It was salespeople, that were
Interesting.
engaged in selling some sort of, more sophisticated solution. And that really stuck with me.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's very practical. It's cool that he just sort of clipped it out. It was like, hey, Yeah, FYI. And you're like,
Yeah.
okay, interesting. You got my attention. So you went and you did the sales thing. How was that? And did you have that sort of sales edge that it takes to get the business won?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not a competitive person with other people. Like I'm very competitive with myself and I have a lot to prove to myself and in my own standards. And sales is a great place for that, because again, you know the discipline that it takes, and that it might look like easy work, but there's
Oh
so
yeah.
much preparation if you're going to do it well. And that same instinct that I guess that has stayed with me throughout my career of wanting to go several layers deep, not just skip along the surface, wanting to truly empathize and to understand, whether it's as a marketer or whether it's as a salesperson, of how can I best, solve your needs. And so when you do that, and I think when you do that earnestly, like I said, yeah, it's a lot of work.
Hmm.
So I love sales for that reason because I think there's so many valuable skills, and especially too as we all move on in our careers. And Casey, I'm sure that you feel it even with what you do. I mean, the way that you and I found each other, and you have to always be selling.
Yeah.
There's not a single role out there of importance where you're not having to sell and to really tap into understanding your audience or understanding who it is that you need to influence. So I think sales was a great place, and it boosts the confidence too.
Hmm.
If you do well.
And then when it comes time to align with sales, it's not a mysterious art. It's like, okay, I've been there. I respect you guys. I'm here to help. Like,
Yeah,
but
well,
don't BS me.
I'll chuckle with that one because you would think so, right? But
Really?
my practical experience is that, once you cross that line, it's kind of like you just crossed over the Hartford line and suddenly you're a Yankee fan. You know, it's like they forget the fact that you were ever in sales, and then it becomes, oh well, marketing, sales, and you get into that kind of classic
Right.
fun
Yeah, keep
tension.
reminding them, hey, hey, I did your job. I sold
Right.
$1 million one year. We're like,
Right.
what's up?
Right. Yeah. So for whatever reason, like I said, in
Yeah.
practical terms, it seems to get forgotten.
How did you eventually get into marketing?
Yeah. So like I said, I've also worked in managing businesses as well. So I think that also gives me a little different perspective on anything that I approach, but
Hmm.
marketing, especially, and I like to think of myself as, having been a president of a company, having been CEO of a smaller company, is I'm what I would have wanted in my CMO,
Right.
sitting in that seat. I've a lot of my thinking and in my behavior of trying my best to be proactive, trying my best to mitigate risks, before they come, and giving information in a way that can be understood, and that the C-suite can make informed decisions from. Yeah, so I did a bunch of that, and then have really found that what I really enjoy, and marketing is a great perch to do it from, is I love strategy.
Hmm.
I love um, kind of looking at the big picture and synthesizing, what's happening with technology, what's happening with our customers, what's happening, with all of these different, parts of kind of the strategic, landscape, and being able to really pour my energy into, I think it really, harnesses my talents well.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, amazing. Yeah, I have a hypothetical for you. If you could go back in time, because I may or may not have a time machine in Nashua, New Hampshire, and you know how to get here. So
Yeah,
next time you're on that trip, the camping trip, um, you use the time machine. It goes back to a particular time. It actually is a couple days after your undergrad graduation. You're about to start a career or something. You just it's like you're
yeah.
about to begin life. And if you could go back and talk to Holly back then, what kind of advice would you give her? What kind of things would you tell her to do, not do more of, all that?
Oh gosh. I love the question, first of all, and I will answer it, but I will say this though, that Yeah, I mean, like I look back, especially myself in my early 20s, and I was probably so obnoxious. I'm sure, a know-it-all more than most, thought I could conquer the world, and I'm sure that that probably turned a lot of people off.
Sure.
But and then you get humbled along the way, and it encourages you to learn more, which again, is just a great, iterative process. So it's hard for me to really say that, because again, I wouldn't be who I am today if, I didn't have all of those experiences, the highlights and the lowlights. But I guess, if I had to give myself that piece of advice, it would be to, probably to slow down, just slow down a bit. I don't know why, but I've always, had this sense of urgency, in getting things done, and, accomplishing things. And, I wish I had more, I guess, of a, stop and smell the roses a little bit. I graduated college, Boston University, when I was 19. And
Wow.
I guess if I had to give myself one really piece of pointed advice, it would have been, don't. And take take the next 2 years and just explore. Like, go do 4 semesters of study abroad,
Yeah.
go do this and that. Like, it would have been just, to slow down a bit more and really enjoy, the moment that you're in. And I don't think I really understood that probably until I had kids, of, the value in doing that. So I don't know. I guess if I had to give myself one piece of advice, it would be that: slow down a bit more, and enjoy where you are.
Do you think you would listen to yourself?
Oh God, no. God, no.
Right?
No,
Uh,
no. My parents could tell you that they had to finally kind of give in, like that, to parent and to keep a good relationship with a strong-willed child.
hmm
You have to bend a bit, which now they love watching me with my oldest, who's a 14, my daughter, who's 14 years old. And
Revenge.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. So I try to take that advice as well.
I've always found it interesting the balance between, I'll call it Zen, or being just in balance with things, and then like getting ahead and pushing, And do they do they ever coexist together? I don't know. Or sometimes you need to be in crazy mode, and sometimes you need to be in smell the roses. I don't know if they can coexist. So I wonder about that.
I think that's a lifelong pursuit,
Hmm
right? Is finding that right balance. And I think, and again, I'm just making this up as I go along, but maybe part of it as well is, that you just appreciate even the craziness,
Yeah,
right? Because you think back to even having kids, and my kids are so close in age, so I went through, like, having a 2 and a 3-year-old, a 3 and a 4-year-old, a 4 and a 5-year-old.
it is.
And even, I mean, that's crazy, right?
It
That is
is.
craziness. You're trying to keep them from killing themselves and killing each other, and, killing the cat. And, but again, it's craziness. It's certainly no Zen there. But even that, like, appreciate, right? Because it doesn't last forever. So maybe this lesson, that even through it all, like, just always appreciate, what you do have in front of you.
Yeah, yeah. The crazy moments, the chaotic opportunity and danger, and all the stuff all swirled together
Yeah.
can be magical. And on that note, speaking of magical and crazy adventures, and taking a semester abroad, or I was going to go visit Machu Picchu. You recently climbed Kilimanjaro?
Oh God, not recently though. It was, this was back in 2000.
Okay.
And my best friend Trish and I were, we got the, brilliant idea that, yeah, so the world might go haywire when the clock goes over to 2000. So yeah, let's go to Africa, right? Because nothing could go wrong with that. And of course, right, it ended up being, nothing did go wrong in the world based on that. So
Right.
it was a good call. But yeah, so I love, like I said, the outdoors is, outside of my work and, my kids, it's definitely, probably my third passion that
Mm.
really drives me. So yeah, Africa, um, Kilimanjaro, Mount Meru, just, yeah,
What was
great
Kilimanjaro like?
adventures.
Because I was literally supposed to climb it like this past month, but I had to
Yeah,
postpone it. So I've just
yeah.
been dying. Like, what was it like? Any recommendations? Things you would do again or not do? Like, do bring extra water or like whatever. Do you have any recommendations?
Oh, let's see. So let's see. Like I said, my experience was 20 years ago.
Sure.
So keep that in mind, and when I was there, I think it was a little less probably crowded, maybe a little less well traveled as it
Sure.
is today, from what I've heard from folks. So that might be a little different experience, but I would say if I had it to do over again, I would bring more small little gifts that you can give to people, because there were so many people along the way that yeah, I mean, the way the world works and life is, you're never going to keep in touch with them, of some of the locals, but that
Yeah.
just absolutely make your trip so special. And I would bring just as many small things as you could pack, as a way of saying, hey,
Hmm.
thank you from Casey in Nashua, New Hampshire. And even as oddball as it is, they will, they will cherish it, that, hey,
Right.
this guy from, America came and he gave me this, he gave me this Celtics hat. He gave me this,
Right.
Patriots, whatever. As silly as that sounds, like that would be my advice, is I would bring more small things that you can give, to show your gratitude.
That's an amazing thought. I will totally do that. Thanks to you. And I was just imagining as you were saying that, like bringing like a 20 Boston Red Sox hats, and just seeing you know, you know, heck with you Yankee fans, like seeing just Red Sox fans all over Kilimanjaro.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. So it's yeah, I mean, like I said, I love getting outdoors. I'm very passionate
Yeah.
about it. I think especially today, I don't know if you feel the same way, Casey, but you know, with us being cooped up so much,
Mm-hmm.
I again, silver linings, right? And always be appreciative for what you can bring out of a situation. But I know lots of people who, would not really describe themselves as outdoor folks, who are finally starting to get outdoors and to find the value in that. I think, the physical benefits aside, I think there's enormous emotional benefits, to it. And,
Totally.
that kind of meditative, like one foot in front of the other, the world just kind of goes quiet. And, before you know it, you're working through problems and things that you
Mm-hmm.
didn't even know that you had, and things are just becoming, so much more clear to you. And I love that. Like I said, at least I'm in tune enough to my brain that I realize when I need that,
Yeah.
and
Like, yeah.
I'll seek it out.
Yeah. Like going after it. It wasn't until COVID that I'm kind of an outdoor guy, but I've been replacing it with travel. So I had like 8 trips booked on Delta, business travel all over the place. Right. And then they're all canceled. So it's like, and I've filled that gap with getting back to the mountains. And you're totally right. Going
Yeah,
up for me is kind of like the hard work. It's like cathartic, and then coming down, you get that runner's high. And many occasions, like either hiking with someone or hiking solo, I'll just talk to myself on the way down. And to your point, talk through a problem. Like, what do I want here, and what is the outcome? And just it can be just a time to yourself to think about what you want and where you want to go with it. It's really powerful.
it is. It is. So Casey, can I draw a bridge now to comic books in
Yeah.
sci-fi now?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
So this
sci-fi, totally, please.
so this whole thing that we're talking about right now, like I said, the kind of this intrinsic value, right, that comes from doing these repeated, kind of simple tasks, and how
Mm-hmm.
your mind clears. Like, and it's funny, I never made this connection before, but it immediately made me think of Doctor Strange, when he
Mm,
is in his early training, and the master, right, keeps on, he has to keep on building that wall up with all
right.
of the big blocks. And then the master comes at the end of the day and just, right, they're just all, scattered again, and he has to keep coming back and doing that and
Keep
doing that.
doing it.
Yeah, right. I think it's
Yeah.
because it clears the mind. It gets the clutter, it gets the self-importance, out, and it just, like, your mind finally gets clear.
There's yeah, that clearing can be powerful too. I think that's what happens when I'm going up because I don't have any. I can't think about work or this. It's like I'm just focused, or even coming down sometimes. and tricky parts, you have to pay attention or you're going to trip over yourself. So you don't really have time unless you're very
Right.
intentional with, okay, I can think, but I got to be careful. I don't want to trip.
Yeah.
You don't have the distractions don't come in. The phone probably doesn't work. And you
Yeah.
have to focus on, for particular parts, just what you're doing, not anything else. And that clears that head for you to be able to be, reasonable when you think about a topic. Yeah.
So there's a term for this
Oh
that I
yeah. Tell
learned,
me.
and it's called flow.
Ah,
It was, I don't know, it was coined by some European, psychologist slash sociologist, something like that. And yeah, it's about like how you tap into your flow. And you're giving a great, we're both talking about different examples of it, but it's that moment when everything just becomes more clear and you feel energized and you feel like
yeah.
your thinking just is at its best. Another good friend of mine is a pilot, recreational pilot, and for him, his mind is always going a zillion miles an hour, and that's the only
Right.
time he can force his mind to slow down, because he has to, again, right? He has to be so methodical about all of his, safety checks and discipline.
Right.
And he loves it because it forces his mind to block everything out. So I just think all of us, right? Whether it's going to be hiking, flying, whatever it is, or, building up, metaphorical, brick walls, it's what can we do to tap into that flow and make
Right.
sure that we're always getting that perspective and that sense of renewal from it.
It's so powerful. And I don't think we talk enough about it, but I think it's one of those things where you need to spend more of your, like, the advice I would have given myself in the old days was like spending more time where your passion intersects, your purpose, and being more in that flow state. Like, but seek it out. And if you're not there, then that's a lot of times for me, the universe was saying like, nope, you're not really in your thing. So bad things are going to happen and you're not going to succeed there until, oh, now you're in the sweet spot. Now it's clicking, but it doesn't click until until you find that area. And so I would kind of direct myself over there to do more of that.
Yeah.
Do you have if I were to say like favorite sci-fi, because we got even connected because I saw sci-fi on there. I was like, oh, this is perfect. Even if we don't
Yeah.
talk any marketing, we'll talk. Do you have like a favorite sci-fi book or series?
Oh gosh. Well, yeah. So first of all, like I said, I get various invites to do things, and I have never made the time to do a podcast,
Oh
Casey.
yeah.
And the only reason why, right, we're doing this is because you promised me that we could talk about sci-fi.
Yes.
So yeah, God, so first of all, I love reading. And I could actually make a strong connection, I think, to even the world of marketing. That one of the reasons why I love science fiction especially is because it gets your mind to accept that there could be these alternate truths,
Yeah.
and to explore, quote unquote humanity, to explore, ethics, oftentimes in a time or world that is not, present day in the world in which we live. And if you can wrap your mind around that, like I said, I think that's a great way to kind of shape our gray matter, um, to put yourself in someone else's shoes. Again, so making us more effective as marketing professionals. So I don't know, some people might hear that and think that that's quite a reach, but I do.
I'm
I
with it.
mean, and then the second thing I think that's fascinating about sci-fi is that, oh, God, I love it. They always think big. Like, you don't have a science fiction writer that, is putting forward this, central hypothesis that's like, okay, yeah, wow, the world is so dramatically different, that, now instead of the phone being this big, it's this big. Wow, isn't this
Right.
revolutionary? Let's write a whole story about it.
Oh, there's
No, it's
two
like
more
the,
gigabytes in your phone.
yes,
Yay. Yeah. Like,
right, by its very nature, the speculative fiction,
yeah.
you know it's making these big leaps about what's possible. And I mean, gosh, I won't say that science fiction has been right more than it's been wrong, but I think it's been right, a scary amount of the time of predicting the way that, not just technology, but politics and society are changing. So I think probably the first, I don't know which one came first, but I really started falling in love with science fiction, I'd say, in my college days.
Okay.
And the first two books that I remember really loving are Dune
Oh
and
yeah.
Ender's Game.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Totally.
So those are still two books that I recommend as well to people who are like, sci-fi, and they kind of, tip their, put their noses up at it. And you cannot read Dune and not just be blown away, right, with the complexity of, the mind that could create this whole political system, this whole ecosystem in the true sense of biological ecosystem,
Yeah.
even, right? I mean, it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. So I remember those being the two first books that I really loved and just opened up my mind to, the value of science fiction.
Ender's Game is, I mean, and the movie came out. Did you see the movie?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, same thing, right?
So you like it for
Did I see
ah,
like 5 minutes of it, and I was like, oh, okay.
yeah,
But those can usually make me mad because it was such a powerful book, and like the way you can't, you really, to be fair, I mean, unless you do like a Game of Thrones multi, season replay, you can't really encapsulate. It was a really powerful book, and for it was kids, like playing
yeah.
and learning, and you know what? Honestly, it was like Hogwarts in the sky. It was like a
Mm,
school, they were training, but it was like there was
yeah.
good and bad, and it was very interesting.
My recollection, especially about Ender's Game and Orson Scott Card, and I think he does this in more of his work as well. What I love about it too, and I think you're able to do it again because it's this alternate universe from our own, where I think he does a great job of presenting these ethical dilemmas,
Hmm.
with the full richness of the complexity, and without being preachy about it.
Right.
Like this whole thing that Ender goes through about, wiping out this alien population. And, it kind of gives you a balanced view of, hey, this is what we didn't know at the time we made the decision. And, like where I think if you did that in even just a work of fiction that was set in contemporary, our real life today in our real world, then all of a sudden people's political views come into things and you associate it with, so there's just
Right.
science fiction is one of those places where you can really explore, I think, some of those, right and wrong and some of those ethics and make up your own mind in the purest sense, if you will, without muddying it up with what it means today.
Right. Without the tribalism or polarization,
Yeah,
it poses the dilemma, the question, is this right? And it's not also not like a easy black and white answer. Like maybe Star Wars is kind of like, oh, bad guy's black, good guy's white, and then like, oh, you battle each other, but stormtroopers are white too. So I guess that doesn't fit. But like you're like, oh, clearly you want these guys to win. Clearly those guys
yeah,
don't win. But then in some cases you're like, is it ever really that clear?
yeah,
On who should win, even the main character, who should they win or not, for sure.
exactly. Yeah, and your question around shows, let's see. I mean, a couple of recent ones that I really enjoyed, Altered Carbon,
Oh
and
yeah, isn't that
right,
that's a show, right, on like
yeah, and
Netflix
on Netflix, yeah.
or Amazon, I think. Maybe?
I think this one's Netflix,
Oh,
Altered
okay.
Carbon, yeah. And
Yeah, it's
I
good.
again, it's so good, right? And again, like it builds upon, something that we're all talking about, about this, the dividing gap between the haves and have-nots, and it really poses that question, well, what happens if we don't die, right? Of course,
Yeah.
that's going to get worse, and this is what that could potentially look like. I love that. I like The Expanse a lot
Yep.
too.
Did you read the
That's
book for that?
I did not know, and I'm so glad because like I get to go back now and experience it
Oh,
through the book. So that's
yeah.
on my list.
Book's really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Book's
And
really
then
good
I
for that.
guess my ultimate favorite probably is, I don't know, and maybe a little bit of a guilty pleasure, but would be Battlestar Galactica.
The TV show?
Still, yeah,
And the
still like one of
modern
my
one, right?
modern one. Yeah.
It's the best series ever,
I love
honestly.
it. I
It
love
really
it.
is. I just heard a podcast, someone talking about like how it's like very underrated. It's
Yeah.
very good.
Oh yeah.
Oh
And I
yeah.
actually thought that the final episode, again, and I won't make any spoiler alerts, but
Right.
I thought that it was done really well and just kind of wrapped things up nicely with a nice little boom surprise
Yeah, a little
too.
like, oh no, you didn't. But do you remember at toward the end when the captain he was like, "There's this book."
Yeah.
Someone was sick, and I've read this book 1,000 times, but I've never read the ending because I don't want it to end because I don't
Mm,
want there to be an end. I did the same thing with that show. So I've
yeah.
watched Battlestar Galactica, but I never watched the finale, the final two episodes, so that it wouldn't end until months later. I was like, okay, time to watch it. But I was like, no, 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 I don't want to know. I let that world continue to exist. I did the same thing with that. That's a fantastic show. Have you read the book, The Three Body Problem?
Oh, no, I haven't. I haven't even heard of it.
Okay, yeah, I can send you a copy of this. This is fantastic. Three Body Problem. It's the number one sci-fi fiction book from China, translated to
Wow.
English. And it's
Love
the
it.
idea that when there's bodies in orbit, like in space, when you have, you know, one sun and planets going around it, it's predictable. You can predict it. When you have two bodies, like maybe two suns, and you have things going around it, computers can predict it. But when you have three bodies, like three suns in a system, it creates something that you cannot predict what
Huh.
will happen.
Love
And
it.
but it's like alien and all this stuff, but it's very mind blowing. And it's like if you could contact someone else, and then the idea of, if the universe is a scary jungle, and why are not more people visible to us? Well, maybe they're trying to hide because the people that walk through the jungle with a torch, now everyone goes after them. So it's like very, I can't even describe it, but very good. And it's actually a trilogy. Um,
Love it.
Fantastic. So I'll shoot you a link on that one. And the other one, We Are Legion, We Are Bob. Have you heard of that one?
No, I haven't. We are Bob.
We Are Bob. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I don't even want to give anything away, but it's like, that is my absolute favorite book. Three Body Problem gets a little dark, so you like need to get through it to get out of it.
Okay.
But then We Are Bob, it's the Bobiverse. There's three books in the Bobiverse, and it is,
Who wrote it?
oh God, who wrote this thing? Um, Maybe I should have him on the podcast. We Are Legion. We Are Bob. Dennis Taylor. That's right.
Okay.
Dennis Taylor. Amazing. I've actually listened to that on Audible. So do you do any Audible?
I do. Yeah. I find it's a great way to
I
bump
would
up
do this Bobiverse
reading.
one on there. I
Okay.
did Three Body Problem on there as well, and that was
Okay.
pretty cool too. But the Bobiverse, I've listened to it, and it's three full books, 4+ hours each. I'm 10 plus. I've listened to it probably like 4 or 5 times because I love the universe it's in, and I just want to be there with them. It's very interesting.
Oh, I look forward to that. Okay, so I will give you one, and
Yeah.
it's fun because it's lighter, and it's kind of laugh out loud. John Scalzi's The Collapsing Empire, and again, it's a trilogy as well.
Okay.
And yeah, and it's I won't
Okay.
say that it's like the best science fiction, but it's a good solid story, fun characters, and it is just laugh out loud funny.
Okay. Perfect.
We
I
can
will
all
totally get that one. Did you ever read Ready Player One?
yeah, yeah.
Did you do the Audible, by the way, or did you?
I read that one, I believe.
Okay,
Yeah.
Will Wheaton narrates the Audible one. He
Yeah,
does
I've
a
heard that.
fantastic job of it, and
Yeah,
I really loved that book. I was browsing Audible, and this one had like, you have like 2,000 reviews. And this one had like 15,000. I was like, what's happening right here? So, but yeah, it was a fantastic book, and so fantastic book. But the movie was terrible. I don't know if you saw the
yeah,
movie.
I did. Actually, I'm not even sure that I finished it. I did
I didn't.
try watching it.
Yeah, I got 10
Yeah,
minutes when I saw that they used a car scene in a book that definitely did not have a car scene in it.
right.
I was like, okay, trope, or like it's like
Yeah,
a Hollywood, formula. I'm out,
yeah,
because that first key was really hard to get, and that was
yeah,
nobody had gotten it. There was a reason
right,
he got it. It wasn't that he just backed up in a car race, It
right.
wasn't like, ooh, so easy. So yeah, I didn't make it through the movie, but the book was great. So.
Yeah, like I said, I love all the 80s references since that's, I grew
Oh,
up in that as well.
yes. Yeah, everywhere.
Yeah,
All of them. They
that's
were
a lot of
great.
fun.
I'm gonna have to go listen to that again. I need a road trip so I can go. I need a
Right.
reason to get out of the house to go do these things. So, well, hey, this has been great. I've got some homework. You got some homework. We'll have to, read our books and then report back. Have you come back on the podcast and learn some more masterclass marketing, and then also talk more sci-fi. This has been fantastic. Where can people connect with you? Where do you want them to reach you?
Sure. On LinkedIn, on Twitter, H Tsourides, H, then just my last name. So yeah, happy to connect with anyone from there. And again, Casey, like I said, thanks so much for having me on and for allowing us to jam out about, geeky sci-fi stuff. And also, I'd be amiss if I didn't say thank you very much for your prior years of service as
Oh
well on
yeah,
behalf
thank
of
you.
everyone.
Yeah, thank you for the thank you. It's always appreciated. There's stories there too. We'll have to get to that one in the next podcast. For those people listening, if you've learned something, and I freaking know you did because I've run out of paper. I have 2 pages of notes over here, front and back. I just gave up on margins and I was like, I'm just going to write sideways. But if you've learned something, share this episode with someone else. That's how you're a thought leader. But don't just share it. Put some takeaways that you got out of this thing. We were talking about upskilling, storytelling, the 3 ingredients, the data integrity, the project accounting, the second level, cross-functional aligned goals. There's so many great takeaways. Put those in LinkedIn, share it, tag myself, tag Holly. We'll join you in a conversation there. And again, Holly, thank you again for coming on here. This is a blast.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Like I said, I think you and I could have chatted for a long time, Casey. So thank you so much.
I think so. Part 2 will be all sci-fi.
Okay, I love it. Good. That's a promise I'm going to hold you to.
That's perfect. For those people listening, this has been the Hardcore Marketing Show. We will catch you all next time.